Hasbro just had their official Fireside chat defending Magic the Gathering, and unfortunately, it was an absolute disaster. It looks like the future of Magic is in real trouble.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a special installment of Mega Magic News. Today we have Hasbro's Fireside chat, more like gaslighting chat, if you could even really call it a full-on chat. The idea behind Fireside chats are supposed to be like, hey, we're just sitting down, we're having a friendly conversation. You have the company Hasbro, you have an outsider who's asking them questions to get the information out there, but the outsider they've chosen is going to lob them really, really softball questions to the point where the entire thing feels pre-scripted, right? It's one step away from asking questions of how do you deal with being so amazing all the time and never failing as a company and always making the right choices. It's that level of scenario. You have to understand that this was put out on Hasbro's website. This is for the investor class. This wasn't meant for us Magic players. This isn't something they put out to mollify us, right? This is literally like, hey, investors, look, I know you got all this money in here, and guess what, guys? Everything is perfectly fine. Everything is great right now, especially with Magic the Gathering. So we're just coming out of nowhere to tell you everything's good. This is a surprise announcement to just say everything is fine. So the idea behind this is to keep the investors from getting spooked and going, we're still on a mission to gather every dollar that exists on the planet and give it to you, right? That's the vibe. So there are a lot of interesting pieces of information that can be gleaned from this, even though it's not meant for us, but there's also some really unfortunate information that comes along with it. So let's talk about how Wizards actually views their player base, because I think this might be the most specific information we've ever been given in this regard. It's still half decently vague, but it goes like this. Active Magic the Gathering tabletop players break down like this. They're mostly around 30 years old. Now, 1/3 of these players have been playing Magic for less than 3 years. 1/3 of them have been playing for 3 to 10 years, and 1/3 have been playing for 10 years plus. The long in the tooth magical dinosaurs like me who remember the earliest glory days of the game. So it's kind of crazy to me to think that actually 1/3 of the player base that Wizards of the Coast projects is made up of us old fogies. I always figured it would actually be much closer to 15 to 20% tops. And I guess that really explains why we saw Wizards of the Coast go, you know what? We're going to do the Brothers War. Let's take this nostalgia and just go full force with it. And they did a really good job with that set. Let's be real. That set is awesome. Anyways, you have that breakdown of the 3 different categories. So 1/3 haven't been here for very long. 1/3 have been here forever. And 1/3 are somewhere in the middle. Now, the player base in terms of casual versus non-casual, they project that it's 80% casual. I was not expecting the number to be that high. And that does reinforce the concept that those of us who are online, like really, really engaged with Magic, we represent an incredibly small portion of the Magic player base, because you have to be super engaged with a product to get to the point where you're like, yo, I'm going to go check out YouTube videos on this card game. I'm going to go even further down into the Reddit. I'm going to go on Twitter. I'm going to go on Facebook. There's all these different levels, right? And most people aren't that involved. Most people are just, yo, let's grab a couple packs down at the store. We'll play this every once in a while, the same way you would play a board game that you really like. A lot of people aren't like, Magic is everything, but hey, I mean, there's some of us, right? So seeing that Wizards projects that 80% of their player base is what it is in terms of casuals, it makes sense some of the decisions that they're making. And you have to understand, in terms of finding useful feedback from people. Magic the Gathering is suffering from what everything is suffering from right now. If you think Magic is the only game where you will go and find people freaking out and raging over all kinds of different things, just go pick any other random card game you want. I happened to be scrolling by, I think it was Twitter or Facebook, one of those two, right? And I came across a Final Fantasy post where they had these Final Fantasy cards, Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, oh, I remember that game. Taking a look at it, I'm like, I used to be right into Final Fantasy VII. I wonder what people have to say about this. And I went down to the comments section and I was like, this is legitimately just like every Magic post I've ever seen. There's a ton of different people with tons of different axes to grind, some of which they're still upset about something 2 years ago, that there's like a dog with a bone. So there's all these people who are upset and a couple people going, yo, I bought it. Yo, I bought it. So if you just looked at it from that perspective, you'd be like, yo, everybody's angry about this. Everybody hates it. But the truth is, there's a lot of people who aren't engaging in that way, going online and shaking their hands and making a YouTube channel and calling themselves the Magic Historian. Fix my favorite game. Most people don't do that, right? So if Wizards thinks that way, that's going to guide their decisions. Now, how do they think their customer base breaks down in terms of like social players versus people who are just interested in collecting the cards? Well, that's actually a pretty even split. They're saying it's half people who are in it for the social element, half people who are in it for the collecting element, right? Now, I don't know exactly how they get these numbers. I don't know how you figure out 80% of your player base is casual and stuff like that. There's got to be a bunch of guesswork going into it based on looking at sales and stuff. I know that they do customer surveys. You'll see them on Reddit. You'll find them like emailed to you and stuff. But overall, those can only hit so many players. So there has to be a bunch of guesswork going on. But the 50% social, 50% collectors is interesting. You can see that's probably why they leaned more into the idea of creating the collector boosters and the set boosters, create the art cards, create the stamps, have people chasing more of these collector things. Because one of the most interesting elements of this entire presentation that they gave was that Magic growth started to stagnate around the mid-2010s. Now, there wasn't a specific reason given, but from like 2014 to 2016-ish, that's like my projection of the time frame, is basically when they started to see Magic falling off, right? You don't have the same level of growth going on, and they're going, what's going on with this deal here? So I think that's when they started to make a shift of their strategy and went, okay, we're not drawing in new people. We need to start pushing out in other directions. And I mean, that could have been when we actually started to see the seeds for something like Arena being laid down. Now, Arena is a very weird part of this presentation because the way they chose to present Arena, you have to understand, if you haven't been keeping up with Arena, Arena is straight up falling apart. I thought it was bad. I had absolutely no clue. I sat down with Strider yesterday for an hour and he showed me figure after figure, basically over Discord, of all the different things that were going on with Twitch viewership for Arena, to the point where I offhandedly made a comment about how Magic Arena is the most like viewed thing when it comes to, if you're going to go to Twitch and you're going to watch Magic, you're going to watch Magic Arena. But that's not the case anymore. There are people who are watching MTGO, there are people who are watching Paper Magic, and they're watching it more than Arena. In fact, I got sent a message today of somebody going, hey, check this out. Have you heard of this Marvel Snaps game? And I'm like, actually, no, I haven't at all. And they're like, well, it's this new game, and it's completely destroying Arena. Check out these numbers, check out these numbers. And I'm like, wow. And I actually started to take a peek around the neighborhood. How are the Arena streamers doing? Who's doing what? And I'm like, oh, you're not even an Arena streamer anymore. Like, people are bailing on Arena hardcore, and Wizards of the Coast is presenting it in a way where they're going, yo, we have 10 million registered players on Arena. They're not talking about the number of actual active players. You have a bunch of compounding problems that have really hamstrung Arena, and it's going to get its own video probably, or at least a bigger segment. But basically, you have the bugs that have been building up. You have the force of alchemy that's just basically shoved on the community so Wizards could go, look at the number of like, Wizards of the Coast plays this game where they go, hey, if we can show these stats, that means we win. But it's like, if you force people in games of alchemy and they don't want to play them, you haven't made alchemy a winning format. That's not how that works, right? So you have the situation where they're talking about Arena and they're saying another very interesting fact that they said is, hey, when you have players who are hybrid, which means they're tabletop and their digital players, they provide 40% more revenue. Now, I have absolutely no clue how they came up with that, because I went, oh, wait a minute. I had an arena account. I mean, I still technically have a registered arena account. Sure, it's dormant. I haven't played in months, and I'm never going to play arena again, but I technically have a registered account. So, I mean, if I'm an arena player, how do you know how much I'm spending physically to staple it onto what I'm spending on arena, right? Which, by the way, is nothing, because I played arena free to play. But still, how do they even come up with these numbers? They're just like, it seems like they're just making things up purely. Like, how do you do this? Is it based on some random inner surveys? Because how are you going to connect customer profiles from actual arena in terms of physical purchases? Unless it's just straight up, we base this off of a handful of surveys of arena players. That's probably what it's going to boil down to. So, in terms of production and what's going on overall, right, because that was a big hot button issue. Remember, Bank of America weighed in, and one of the things that they pointed out on top of the reserved list violation was the fact that they are overproducing products. So, Wizards of the Coast did, Hasbro, because this is the top level, they did address this situation. Overall, basically what was said is Magic the Gathering isn't being overprinted. So they're saying that it's not overprinted because everything we print, we're selling out. Now, there's some other arguments being made by people saying, okay, look, Wizards of the Coast says they're selling out all these products, but then we see Amazon with all of this product sitting there, right? And so if Amazon has all this product where they have to do these crazy fire sales to dump them off, doesn't that say that Wizards of the Coast is making too much product? Well, unless Wizards of the Coast has an actual deal where Amazon is just holding their product like a warehouse and then it gets shipped off. Like, if Amazon is buying it and reselling it, then Wizards of the Coast isn't like, they're not losing out on this situation by having made too much product, right? It's literally like Amazon bought it and sold it all. And if Wizards is the one behind it selling it, and they can just sell it at these lower prices, but it's still moving the product, and they're the ones originally making it, well, it's way cheaper for them to make it, so they're still making a profit on these boxes. So from whatever like angle you want to look at it from, in this situation, they clearly are selling all the product. Whether this is something that will persist over the long term is another question, right? If Amazon's the one that has to foot the bill for this, then obviously they're going to start to decrease their orders. So this isn't something that will persist, but Wizards of the Coast has an interesting stance where they say, look, we're not overprinting products, but at the same time, we'll get to that point later. Let's one thing at a time. So we have 6 tentpole releases a year. This is the plan for Magic the Gathering going forward, which, by the way, is the plan we're already living with right now. So it's more of the same. It's going to be 6 tentpole releases, and if you don't know what tentpole means, it means bring your whole family, bring everybody in. So they're going to do 6 sets a year that are everybody gets that set. And you may have noticed that's more than the normal standard sets that we get, right? There would be, 4 standard sets normally released in a year? So with 6, we're talking supplemental sets like Lord of the Rings, these ones, Modern Horizons, the ones they want everybody to get in on. And then on top of that, everything else will be considered opt-in. That's their current strategy. They're very happy with it. So everything outside of those 6 sets is considered opt-in. All of the jump starts, 30 different commander decks, 50 million secret layers, all of that is opt-in from Wizards of the Coast's perspective, okay? The next point that they tout, and this is like, you got to admire the way that they're working the numbers to show their investors. They go, okay, we're seeing huge growth at the LGS's, son. The WPN locations are bumping. Isn't that amazing? And it's like, oh yeah? Yeah, we got like 40 to 60% growth there. And it's like, oh, that's amazing. And why is that? Oh, it's because the world shut down and everybody started going back to the stores. And so the ones that actually managed to survive now have some people flooding into them. That's not your doing. That's not the strength of your product, right? That's just everybody's, like, every store that survived that could reopen is like, wow, we're seeing a surge in the people going to this place. It's like, yeah, that's how the world works. So good job on that one. But to return to the saying they're not overprinting stuff, let's get to the biggest beast in the room. 30th anniversary. What did they have to say about that monstrosity? Well, they said that they scaled back 30th anniversary based on feedback. So based on customer feedback, they scaled back the amount of 30th anniversary that would be available. Now, this is a hilarious position to take because this isn't a print to demand product. So it's not like, yo, we just decided we were going to make less. They already made it. They already made it. They went out and approached people and said, hey, we have this window within which we want you to advertise this product. And it wasn't just for the one day. So they had planned to do waves of this stuff. And it went so poorly that they're like, yo, we're scaling it back based on consumer feedback. But here's where you're going to get enraged, friends. You're going to think to yourselves, yes, the 30th anniversary rage made them go, okay, we got to take a step back. We got to stop. Here's how they framed it to the investors. The reason they scaled it back is so that the boxes that are going out to people will be worth more money. It has absolutely nothing to do with quelling people's anger over the reserve list. It has nothing to do with quelling people's anger over the price point. It has everything to do with the optics. Remember how Bank of America said, yo, these guys are overproducing. Well, this is their clapback saying, we're not overproducing. We didn't overproduce the 30th anniversary intentionally so that we can drive the prices up. And we did that specifically based on our customers' feedback because we're good and we listen. And it's an absurd position to take, but that's the reality of it. They're literally painting it in that light. And who knows if internally that's how they're actually viewing it at this point, where they're just like, you know what? This is a win for us because now we say this and we just, what do they do with the rest of the product? It's still got to be sitting around, right? They're not going to burn it. They're too greedy for that. They'll just keep it around. Like are there any laws that say that Wizards of the Coast can't just take this 30th anniversary stuff, put it in a warehouse, wait for the scarcity of it or whatever, and this to all blow over, and in 5 years, where nobody cares about this hubbub anymore, and like the Commander community and the old school community have started to use these and they're worth money, what's to stop Wizards from bringing the boxes they have out and just cracking these packs or selling them under some other like account name, right? This is the kind of stuff that you can't do in the stock market or whatever because there's all kinds of protections. But there's literally nothing to stop Wizards from doing this. And so they're presenting it to their investors like, yo, check it out. This product, we've made it even more scarce, hard to get, and expensive, right? That's the opposite of the takeaway that people wanted to get from this. They wanted Wizards to go, okay, you know what? We're going to dial it down. We're going to take the price tag back. We're going to get back to our roots, but it's full speed ahead, friends. There's no pullback on this. And the way that it's actually presented means whatever plan they have for the next 30th anniversary item, because you know this isn't the first one, right? They do this stuff in waves. They've seen what happened. Now they're going to pull back and they're going to cry this out as a victory. Dude, there's so much stuff going on in the world of Magic right now. There's this crazy, greedy, you have to spend the most money in the world to get these tokens. We're going to talk about that in another video because this Fireside chat has completely consumed everything for the day. But regardless, Wizards of the Coast is going like ham on their monetization in every way possible. They just found a way to like over monetize a handful of tokens, and it's throw up in your mouth gross. We'll talk about that in the next video because it absolutely has to be discussed. But right now, just focusing on the overall takeaway from this, you have to understand that after talking about all of this Magic stuff, it's a fireside chat based on Magic the Gathering. But you know what really got hammered hard? The D&D movie that's coming out. And by hammered hard, I mean they hammered home, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the biggest thing. D&D is going to get revitalized. We're going to make all kinds of money off of this. And it's like, hold up. Dungeons and Dragons, the imagination game of amazingness, where everybody just needs one copy of a book. This movie is going to cause massive monetization. And how? How are you literally going to do this? It's not like Magic where you print money, right? With D&D books, you only need like one person in the group to have it. Most of the time, it's the DM, the guy like me who has all the books. So if anybody needs them, yeah, I've got them all here. Even the player's guides. We're good. Let's go, friends. So like you can only sell so many of these books to people. And the fact that they're like, D&D is the way. It's like, and we're gonna arena, like the revamp, like in 2023, the arena revitalization and whatever. And it's like, you mean that buggy mess that you haven't bothered to fix and you've been bleeding people out so hard because you got so greedy with? Like, you legit went, well, no, wild cards are impossible to get. No, we'll sell you wild cards. $50 a go. Will you please give us $10 for wild cards? Like, they're getting more and more desperate on Arena. So to sit there and go, yo, Arena is done right now. It is gasping on the floor. I had no clue of just how bad Arena has gotten. It's crazy. We're going to get into that. But anyways, guess what, my friends? I messed up my nose. Want to see? Want to see? Well, you can't, because I got a bandage on it right now. So I'm gonna tell you what happened to my nose tonight in my live stream. You heard of clickbait? Well, this is click bandage, son. If you want to know why I have to wear a bandage on my nose, or if there's anything under here, what's going on? Am I starting a rap career? Did Wizards of the Coast chop part of my nose off for sticking my nose where it doesn't belong? Who knows? I know. And you'll know if you come to tonight's live stream. And if you don't, well, then you'll go to your grave not knowing. And when you make it to the other side and the spiritual beings there say, what happened to Hatcher's nose? And you don't knows? Down to hell you goes. So don't say I didn't warn you. Anyways, big thanks to all my patrons. Thanks for coming by, everybody, and I will see you all for the next video where we talk about some more Wizards grossness, or tonight in the live stream for some more noseness. Peace!